Hello! Today I'm filming my favourite books of 2024 and I'm so excited. I have even ranked them in the order, so it's from my least favourite to my most favourite book. So there are only 10, I'm not doing 24 books, and I had I think 6 5-stars? Yeah, I had 6 5-stars and then 4 of the 4 stars here, but it was kind of a little bit tricky to narrow it down a little bit to 10, but we're gonna go with it. Spot number 10 is actually taken by Belladonna by Adeline Grace. It took me by surprise with how much I enjoyed this book, and I think this is a romantic fantasy. So in this book we follow our main character called Signa, is how I want to say her name. But all her life she's basically had this thing that whoever she's with, is as in family, dies. So she lost her parents when she was young, and then she was passed from relative to relative, from house to house, and every time they seem to have died. Now her remaining relatives are people in this Hawthorne house, the Hawthorns, and she goes there and there's a ghost that basically tells her that she's been poisoned. And to find out what's happened, she is making a deal with death. So this was very atmospheric and gothic. I loved it. I loved Death as a character as well. It was quite dark, but not like in a gruesome way. It was just atmospherically dark. I love that kind of atmosphere, that kind of vibe. This is completely my vibes. I love gothic stuff in general, so that was brilliant. The romance bit as well was really good, and it was really easy to read. It wasn't like heavy fantasy. There's not really that much fantasy in the book, I don't think, but I like the main character. I love the little bit of magic. I love the darkness of it. There are other things that are not explained in the blurb that happen, obviously, but those bits were really good, really to my liking. So I really had a good time with it, unexpectedly. Like I said, I didn't expect to like this book quite as much as I did, so now I'm really looking forward to reading the sequel to this book. I don't think there's anything else I can say. I love Death as a character. I also liked another character, I want to say Simon, but I could be wrong. I think it was Simon. My memory's not great, but it was great. I love also stories that are focusing on just a couple of characters or just one character, and there's not like, I don't like books that jump between perspectives all the time. So this one wasn't. I think it just focuses on one person, but even the fact that the people she's involved with, they're really limited, which I actually quite enjoyed. So this was a really good one, very atmospheric. Place number 10 takes Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, and this is the sequel to Legends and Lattes, which I read I think last year, maybe the year before, can't remember, but this one is like a prequel to that one. In this book we follow Viv, who is, I think she's like taking a break from her war stuff, from being a soldier. Yes, because she was injured. So she's left in this little village. She is now spending her time in a struggling bookshop. Again, the usual thing, the friendships between the characters, the little romance as well, the descriptions of books this time, and the coziness of the town, the writing. It's not, again, it's not really like super heavy fantasy at all. I do enjoy it, cozy fantasy, I reckon. I love the descriptions of the books. I loved how it was a good focus of the book, and everyone reads in these books. It's amazing. I love books about books that are like that, when it's actually big focus. And the sort of even almost found family type of thing as well. It was really cute. I really enjoyed it. It was atmospheric. It was so cozy. It was so like heartwarming, and it's like a hug in a blanket. And like I said, books about books is one of my favorite things when they're done really well, and this one is one of the ones that's done really well. And it was just beautiful. It is a 4-star, by the way, but I did really enjoy it. I just loved it. I feel like I'm not giving enough credit about the books to the books that I've read and enjoyed, but I just don't know what else to say. I really had a good time with it. Book number 8 is actually an ebook, another unexpected one, but that one is Mad Hats in Trouble by, I can't remember who, but I'm going to put a picture on the screen. This one took me completely by surprise, and I would say it is a mixture of genres. So it was only like 200 pages, and I've got 5 books in a series on my Kindle. I've read 2 from the series now, and it is a series that I keep thinking about, and I remember just reading it and being so into it. Read them quite quickly, both of them, one after the other, by the way, which I never do with a series. But anyway, in this book we follow the main character, whose name I can't remember. But anyway, so she gets a letter that one of her long lost relatives that she didn't know existed has died, and she basically inherits a newspaper business from him that is set on this small island, the Fade Island, by the way. So she goes there, and I don't know what's the spoiler, it's not at this point, but there is a possibility that he was murdered. So she's trying to find out what's happened, but there's also, she's a witch, forgot to say that, but she's not, she's new witch basically. She doesn't really know how to use her powers. And there's also really snarky, really sarcastic and grumpy cat who's her familiar, who is a warlock. So the relationships between those two is amazing. And there's, like I said, a bit of a murder mystery as well. We've got this policeman who is trying to figure out what's happened. Then there's something else happening that he has to investigate, and there could be a little bit of romance in there. It's not spicy at all, it's slow burn-ish. I just found it so fun. It was so atmospheric. I felt like I was on that Fade Island. I love that Fade Island. All of the characters that were mentioned, it's quite like cozy, but it's so funny as well. The books are so funny. I laughed out loud quite a few times. I love the main character. She's so strong and like independent, and she just does what she wants, and she knows what she wants. It's amazing. I love her as a character. I also liked the romance between her and the policeman as well. He's quite a nice, interesting character as well. It's just full of everything. There's a little bit of magic, a little bit of sassy characters, humour, everything. I love those books so much, so I want to continue with the series. That was another 4-star though. Place number 7, and the last of the 4-star books, is actually The Door-to-Door Bookstore by Kirsten Henn. This is the book that I read, I think, at the beginning of the year, but this is the one I still every now and then keep thinking about, so it definitely deserves a spot and one of my favourite books of 2024. We follow this main character, who is an elderly man who delivers books to his customers, and this bookshop is now run by one of his friend's daughter. So the friend used to own the bookshop, and so this man, I can't remember his name though, Carl, he was always delivering books and picking books for different people, but now this daughter wants to change things and she doesn't want this to happen anymore, but he still goes and does it. And at one point he's accompanied by this, I think she's, how old is she, 5? Sorry, 9 years old. So she sort of follows him one evening. At first he doesn't want her there, she's a nuisance to him, but the more they spend time together, the more he warms up to her. I loved it. I nearly gave it 5 stars, I'm pretty sure. I just loved it so much. There's so much love for books and literature and all about that. It was beautiful. There's so much, there are some books about books that I feel like there's not enough about books in them, but in these ones it's beautiful. We get to know the different characters, the customers that he goes to. We learn about their reading taste, we learn about their lives, how these books that he picks for them, by the way, which is another really lovely element. We learn how their lives change, how they react to books, how they might be doing something that's inspired them in the books, changed their life in one way or another. And the relationship, like the friendship between this girl, Sasha, and Carl is also beautiful. I love the little girl. She's such a lovely girl. It was just beautiful. I really enjoyed it, and highly recommend this one. Like I said, I nearly gave it 5 stars. I don't quite remember why it wasn't a 5-star, but it was beautiful. I loved all the characters, all the side characters. The talk about books, there was a lot about it. Like I said, it did, I feel like, was a love letter to literature and books. Now we're going into the 5-star. So at place number 6, we've got Killjoy by Holly Jackson, which is a little prequel to the Good Girl Guides to Murder series, which I've absolutely loved. This one took me by surprise. I gave it 5 stars sort of on the spur of a moment because I read it in one sitting and I didn't expect to love it quite as much as I did. Like I said, it's a prequel, so in this one we follow Pip, and one day she sat with her friends, I'm pretty sure, her family, I can't remember, and they're playing this game of like solve a murder. Yeah, 1920s themed murder mystery party, that's what they're having. And she gets so into it. I forgot sometimes, quite a few times, that it's just a game and they're not actually trying to figure out the murder. But I loved it. I loved it. I even found it funny with all the little interruptions that, like, they've got a pizza delivery and something, they sort of played into the game somehow. It was just a lot of fun. And it was interesting to see. It doesn't sound like an interesting and captivating thing to me. I never expected to like a murder mystery game book, but I did. I gave it 5 stars. It was absolutely brilliant, and it made me want to reread the whole trilogy, which I'm not going to because I've got a massive TBR that I need to get through, but I really want to read at some point, reread them. But yes, this was unexpected. Really fast paced. I loved seeing Pip again, and we can see what prompted her to then start the project that she started in the first book in the series. So to see that little bit, what started it, was good. And I think there was one thing at the very end of the book that gives a clue to something else that would happen, and only you'd know it if you've read the whole series. So I love that little kickback. But then it doesn't spoil anything if you haven't read those. You wouldn't have a clue of what this is about. You wouldn't even notice that. But anyway, I loved it. Spot number 5 takes Jack the Ripper, The Complete History of Jack the Ripper by Philip Sugden. This book took me absolutely forever to read, but it's really, really thick. But I really had a good time with it, as much as you can have a good time about a serial killer. But what I did like about it is so many details. It goes into every murder with so much detail, with how the victim was, about their lives in the past, what they were doing on that day, what their relationship with different people were, even how they were murdered, and everything. There were so many details, and even details about the potential suspect, crime scenes and everything, the speculations. It was so much fun to read. It took me forever because I'm not really good at non-fiction. I find it much more difficult to read because you have to concentrate a lot more, you have to think a bit more, you have to pay attention a little bit more, especially with all the details, and they're quite long chapters as well. Like about one murder there'll be 20-30 pages long, and because it's all full of detail, it's quite, I don't want to say dry, but it's quite full of facts, so you have to pay attention. But at the same time, it's not really that difficult to read. I think it's just me not being able to read it, especially in the evenings, like after work and whatnot. But it was really fascinating. It was so full of details, and like I said, it was just really, really interesting to see how it was going. And I'm like one of the most people, well, not most people, some people are fascinated by Jack the Ripper. Not to glorify what he did, but as it is just fascinating in a way that nobody's ever caught him. And so these suspects that are in the book, for all we know, one of them could have done it, could have been Jack the Ripper, and it is explained in many ways, like why they could be or why they couldn't be, but also it could be something completely random. So that's what's fascinating to me, how he was never caught. But obviously back in the day, they didn't have CCTV, they didn't have forensic evidence, they had nothing like that. It was just still really interesting and fascinating to read. Book number 4 is another ebook, and that is The X by Frida McFadden. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting to give it 5 stars, but I did. So this is a thriller. We follow, let me just get a Goodreads thing because I don't want to spoil anything. I'm gonna read you the blurb. Cassie thinks she has met the perfect man. Joel is sweet, handsome, romantic, and best of all, he's crazy about Cassie. She thinks she's found the guy she'll spend the rest of her life with, have children with, grow old with. Yes, she knows about his perfect ex-girlfriend, Francesca, the beautiful, brilliant chef, beloved by all his friends, but she thinks Francesca is out of the picture. She thinks Francesca is gone for good. Think again, Cassie. This book doesn't have the most amazing rating on Goodreads, but I had so much fun with this book, especially at the end, the last 130 pages. I could not put this book down. I was reading just for hours and couldn't put it down. I know there is some bit in there, specific trope, I think, that I don't want to spoil, but loads of people hate that trope. I feel like that would be a spoiler to say what it is. But to me, I don't mind it. As long as I'm entertained in books and thrillers, as long as it's something that I didn't see coming at all, I love it, I'm entertained. And I thought, I didn't expect to enjoy it quite as much because it doesn't sound like something super mind-blowing or amazing, but I just gobbled it up. I ate it up so quickly. I loved it. I didn't find a single page boring. I found all the twists and turns really fascinating, and there was one specific twist that obviously happened towards the end that a lot of people would probably be really annoyed, and I think I've read reviews. People hated that. I personally loved it because, like I said, it was entertaining and I didn't mind in the slightest way that this is the way the story went, because I loved every bit of it. So just saying. And yeah, I found the relationship thing really interesting. I found being in people's heads really interesting. I don't know what it was about it. I just found it all fascinating. Not a single page boring. I don't know what else to say about it. It was just great. Spot number 3, now we're in top 3 favourite books of the year for me, is What You Were Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Ayoma. And this book is obviously translated from Japanese, and I have good history with Japanese literature that is sort of in this sort of vibe. So in this book it's 4 different short stories, but they're all sort of connected anyway. So we've got this library and we've got a librarian who is a really like grumpy woman, but people would go to that library for one reason or another. They could be looking for like a gardening book or something else, and she would have a little chat with them. Then she would type a few books recommended on the topic that they came looking for, but she would every time put a single book that for some reason or another she'd just think they need to read. And at first they don't notice it, but then when they go to pick up the books, they see it and think, oh, what's this all about? And then out of curiosity, they pick it up. But also what I found quite fascinating in this one as well, she does felting, the librarian. So every time she'd recommend a book, she'd give them a little felted object. And what I also found fascinating is that then later on, when the characters go and read the books that she's recommended, the book that she recommended, they all sort of twisted in a way that sort of makes sense in their current situation or their current life. And one way or another, they take the lesson out of it or relate to it or something like that. And then the little object that she's given them as well, they somehow manage to put that in their life as well, as in like the meaning of it or something like that. I just found it really fascinating, and I liked all of the characters. I think I liked all of the characters. I don't remember exactly all of them, but I just found it fascinating. I find a really cute concept that she was giving them the objects and then they just interpreted it in their own way. And the books as well that she recommended as well. There is an explanation of why she did what she did, which I thought was brilliant, because at first I was thinking, but how does that work? Explanation makes perfect sense, and I'm happy with that. So I just had a really good time with it, and it made me warm on the inside, and I just loved it. I love books about books, and this one was definitely a good one. Place number 2 takes The Lantern of Lost Memories by Sanaka Hiragi, another Japanese book. This one is not about books though, so this one is, so basically once you die, you go to this place with this guy who is your guide sort of thing. He's like in between life and death. And once you go there, he tells you that you have to pick a photo for each year of your life. And so you start to relive your memories and stuff like that. But you're allowed to go for one day to take another picture of the same day. So like if one of the pictures is a bit blurred or something, you could go back to that day and retake the picture. So that's the plot essentially. And then at the end of when they go to that day, retake the picture, then the person chooses all of the photos and it's put in the Lantern of Lost Memories, and that's when their life flashes before their eyes. Again, this consists of 4 different stories, and one of them was really good. The first one was really, I loved the first one so much. I think I even maybe cried in that one. It was about a teacher and how she, I don't know what if that's going to be a spoiler, how devoted she was to the children and stuff like that. It was just beautiful. And the guy who was the guide, he cares so much for every single person. You can see that he loves the people, he loves the stories, he loves their lives, he loves listening to them. And it was just amazing. Hearing all of these stories as well from different people's perspectives was also really fascinating and interesting, and how they reflect on their lives, how they like, what's the word, regret it or don't regret it. I loved it. It was so good. It was like cute and bittersweet and heartwarming, sometimes heartbreaking. I just loved it. I did give it 5 stars, so I really enjoyed it. And my favourite book of the year, unexpectedly, is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I cried in this book quite a few times. I just remember being about halfway through. Still wasn't sure if that was going to be a 4 or 5 star, but then something just tipped it over. I loved it. I do enjoy books that are set in the period of World War II, but this one was just quite something special. It was quite short-ish. It was 250 pages or so. This book follows our main character, whose name is Lael, and he is Jewish. He goes to, obviously, Auschwitz, and he's given the profession as a tattooist. So he puts the numbers on every single person who goes to the concentration camp. This book was beautiful, but I feel like I'm starting to cry when thinking about it. This is embarrassing. Anyway, so Lael as a character, he was such an amazing human being. I feel like he was so caring. He was so thoughtful. He built friendships. He gave hope to different people. The love story that he had with another girl, it was absolutely beautiful, and obviously heartbreaking, because obviously where they are, what's happening, is heartbreaking. But it's a beautiful story as well. It's based on a true story, so at the end we do see pictures of him and his life and whatnot. But I just loved it so much. Lael as a character is absolutely a beautiful human being. I don't know what else to say about it. It was just fascinating. Again, I couldn't really put it down. And the humanity of this book, the love, the hope that he had, and how he helped other people get through things day by day, even though he was struggling himself, but he still managed to give other people hope. I absolutely loved this book so much. This definitely deserves the first place. I've got a sequel to this book, by the way, The Sulcus Journey, and I need to read it, and I really want to read it, so this is just beautiful, amazing. And the ratings, by the way, are really, really high, which I'm not surprised at all. So absolutely loved it. It was amazing. I would highly recommend it if you haven't read it at all. Also, the bad bits are slightly brushed over, so you don't really get to see the gritty, horrible bits, if that's something that would put you off. It's a bit more, it's implied, it's not ignored, but you don't see the details of everything. It's not explained in detail. what exactly happens. But it's implied and you have a pretty good idea of what's happening, but just not in detail. These are, plus I think, how many? 3 more ebooks are my favourite books of 2024. I think I had a really good reading year, but I will talk about it more in my 2024 wrap up. So yeah, please let me know down in the comments what was your favourite book of 2024. I'd love to know. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye!